you're listening to Champagne Sundays, the art and entertainment show on Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Nancy Reed and Lisa Smith, the publishers of ChampagneSundaysMagazine.com. And, of course, we've got co-host the David Bully Bowers with us. And we're happy to have Marty Papazian join us. And he is a writer, director, and actor in his film. It's an independent film out called Least Among Saints. I was just saying earlier that it is out right now in theaters across the country. It opened October 12th, and he's going to tell us a little bit of the story. I've watched the trailers for it, and if you want to get all the information, where you can watch it, when, and watch the trailers, get the info, go to leastamongsaints.com. They're also on Facebook and on Twitter under LA Saints. Hi, Marty. It's good to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, champagne toast to you for getting your movie out. From what we have seen, this is quite a story.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a long journey, and it's been a really exciting weekend, and we're all really, really pleased with the people that are showing up and the responses that we're getting. It's very, very cool.
Let's talk a little bit about this, because I know you're an actor. And then, is this the first movie that you've written and directed?
It is. It's my debut as a feature writer and director. I had directed a short film previously that won Best Picture at a couple of film festivals. I had been working in theater, but also doing a number of shorts with friends just for fun throughout the years, and sort of developing my craft as a filmmaker over the last 5 years. So, and also as an actor for the last 12 years. I think it's all kind of culminated to this moment here today.
And give us a little overview of this story, because, I get dangerous with that. I'm blonde. Anything could happen. No. Seriously, tell us the story of this, because I think it's a very important story on so many levels.
Yeah, I agree. The story centers on a combat veteran who returns home, and he's suffering from post-traumatic stress. And he lives next door to this little boy, and they start to sniff each other out. And through a set of tragic circumstances, the soldier ends up in care of this little boy. And it's about these two sort of damaged, lost souls who become father and son, who heal together through their sort of acts of compassion and service for one another. That's the tale.
And, when you talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, Nancy and I, we're mother-daughter, and we had our studio and everything based in 29 Palms, California, up in Joshua Tree area. And, I've told this story before on the show, but it's something, I think it's just a huge issue that we have. It's getting a little bit better, but at the same time, I think everyone has their time of when they're going to be able to accept and deal with that, And one night, and it was one weekend, actually, and we heard it, unfortunately, 6 Marines shot themselves throughout the whole region. And you could hear it. And and it was separate suicides over the weekend.
Terrible. There's been more suicides than there has been casualties in the war.
Wow.
It's an amazing statistic. It's terrible, and the genesis of the script was way back in 2004 when I was meeting guys that were coming back for the very first deployments, and now we're 12 years later. Still men are fighting and dying today, right now. So it's such an important topic, because it's not even a topic. It's what's happening in our culture, in our lives, and as an artist, I just felt like we have to do the material has to be centered around things that we're actively involved with, and this is an issue that just needs a lot of attention, needs a lot of awareness. These guys need a lot of support.
I think a lot of people don't realize how many tours our men and women are doing. In the Vietnam days, they did maybe 1 or 2. Now we're like 5, 6, 7, and these guys and women, the girls too, they don't get a chance to regroup mentally, physically, spiritually. It's just one tour after another, and it's kind of go home, go back, go home, go back. And then we saw some of the military wives especially had an extremely difficult time dealing with the guys coming home and being totally different people and leaving again so soon. That it's kind of like they're married to total strangers.
Yeah, we there's a volunteer army and a military, and these guys are taking on the responsibilities of multiple tours and deployments, and it affects everybody. You know, this war is affecting everybody. It's affecting families, wives, as you say. You know, it's the guy living next door. It's our community. You know, so it's just really important.
And you also deal with addiction in there. You're dealing with things that you know, society is dealing with right now, and it's kind of, I think we're going through a big change in our country right now, and I think we forget sometimes how young we are as a country, but there's this change, and the issues that your movie brings to light it's so important. I mean, kids are in trouble with not having their parents around. There is addiction. I mean, in the same time, I'm going to go back to 29 Palms. I mean, no offense to 29 Palms. It's a great area. It's home to Joshua Tree Park, and I love that area. But that's, you know, the same as Oceanside. It lived out there, too. And, you know, there's issues with addiction that come around.
What's a coping mechanism?
It's a coping mechanism for people right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and it certainly was like important for me. You know, this film is about redemption. This film is about hope.
Yes.
And so it's about their relationship, and the one of the most satisfying things about this is the smiles on people's faces when they come out and the laughs we hear in the theater, because it's a charming story. And it was really important for me to tell a story about a guy who comes back and he's right at the edge, but he's able to pick himself up by his bootstraps. And sort of through the relationship with this child and through the service and compassion to this child, he's able to sort of put the pieces somewhat back together. And, you know, as a filmmaker, I just feel there's been too many stories of soldiers and depicting them, you know, kind of ripping stories from the headlines, depicting them in these sort of dark, dismal places. And I really wanted to tell a story about, you know, a guy that was going to make his way back. You know, and that's certainly our messaging as filmmakers, and that's what people have been, you know, experiencing. And it's a universal tale as well, too, because, you know, as a human being, in myself, and we've all been in those places where we feel isolated and, you know, in those dark areas. And the only thing I've known is about service, right, being of service to somebody else. Thereby I get to have, like, my own personal freedom. And so, you know, again, it was just really important for us to have that, the messaging in the film, you know?
And, you know, what's interesting, Marty, too, with this show and the inspiring part of it, I think we need that. We need a good dose of that, but also something that you can see, wait a minute, I'm going to do something, not just, oh, we're going to tell an inspiring story. Here's how it works. And what I thought is really good is that he is attached to the child, because now he's almost healing himself through him. And sometimes isn't that the way we get over our stuff, is by helping others?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. I mean, the boy saves him as much as he saves the boy. And I think the cast in this film, you know, the actors, the young boy was played by Tristan LeBeau, who's a 10-year-old actor, and he's phenomenal. The kid is phenomenal. And the actors throughout, you know, Son Giacomo and Charles Dutton and A.J. Cook. I mean, you talk about other issues, you know, Son Giacomo's character plays a social worker, and again, there's so many things at play in the film in terms of what our culture and our society, the things that are going on, the way a child can get lost in the system, and there's so much bureaucracy, and there's so many sort of rules and red tape. And this is a tale about a group of individuals, you know, the least among saints, that are sort of breaking those rules in order to sort of save these two individuals. And I think that's the sort of charm of this tale, you know.
I like that part, because I know I came from a really difficult background as a welfare baby with lots of brothers and sisters, and social workers were always showing up at the house, and my dad was always hiding stuff he wasn't supposed to have, and you know, it was kind of like a, you know, you kind of wanted the social workers to come and take you away, but then you realize if that were to happen, then you would never see your brothers and sisters again, and you'd get all split up, and it was kind of a, you know, I'm glad that you touched on that, because the system really is kind of broken in a lot of areas. And, you know, and we always talk about, you know, federal budgets and what we need and what we have to do and how much money is being spent, when the real problem is we have the laws, we have the agencies, we just need them to do their job and do it compassionately.
Yeah, and it's so difficult in those areas because they're faced with so much tragedy on a daily basis. And I thought that's what Son Giacomo does so beautifully in this, is she's able to capture the sort of accumulative experience of a social worker, and yet he still is able to portray someone who still holds on to that hope that maybe this one I can help, you know. And with a lot of the research I did with social workers, you know, they don't want to just sort of move the kid into the system. They want to try to find someone for him to be with, a family member, you know, something like that. And so, so it's an amazing story that you have. That you personally have. That's amazing.
It is an amazing thing, and the system is it's a mess. It's a hot mess in some ways, mess. And so it is. It's a mess. But at the same time, it's there, and it does do some good. So I'm not going to, you know, I'm not trashing anyone. I'm just going.
Same.
You know, it just let's try and make it that we all get together around our kids and those who are suffering in this country. Let's all work together on that. David, I'm curious about you because, you know, at the same time, Marty, this couldn't have come at a better time. We've got our next Champagne Sunday show is on November 11th, a special toast to our veterans. And so I want to say that, everyone, that it's going to be a special show. And, you know, we're looking forward to that, you know, just at that show, but looking forward to, we're always trying to bring light back that those who serve are human beings. And sometimes when you watch on TV, you hear this many troops, you know, died. David, isn't this what we always talk about? A troop is a human being.
Yes, that is, and we experienced that up close and personal when we did our veteran show from the Florida VFW last year, and I touched on this on a little personal because my brother and I both served during the Vietnam era, and my brother actually went over there, and he can tell you some stories about PTSD that would really move you to tears, to put it mildly. And Marty, I do have one slightly off-topic question as far as where we are in the discussion right now, but I just want to know, how do we do with your name today? Did we get it right?
Yeah, you did, actually.
Okay, great. We worry about those things. And when I mention when I mention what I'm going to mention now, you'll really understand why, because I wanted to touch on the reviews of this movie, which have been mixed. The New York Times, Jeanette Katsoulis, wasn't very kind to you, however, and here's one of those names. Joseph Smigelski of the Huffington Post was, well, maybe Ms. Katsoulis should read his review, because Mr. Smigelski said, I'm going to quote a little bit here, a word of advice, at times it seems to me the movie was a bit unrealistic, that some of the actions eluded consequences, but don't be dismayed. Papazian has a strong directorial hand and is not cutting corners. The actions of police detective Charles S. Dutton and social worker Laura Son Giacomo and a certain nurse at the local hospital make sense in the context of the story. Besides, the story has a subtle, almost naive, fable-like quality that makes us hope that at least sometimes honorable people with power can, when it's most important, overcome obstacles put in their way by well-meaning but jaded bureaucrats. If you're sick and tired of the blockbuster shoot-'em-ups, try Least Among Saints, which to me comes off as a very, very strong review. I wanted to know where, because many of these stories, many times, these stories are drawn from real-life events. I wanted to know where you drew this story from.
Yeah, I mean, before I answer that, I mean, I think, you know, the Huffington Post give a fair review, and you know, there was New York, you know, but Los Angeles Times gave us a beautiful review and really supported the film, and that's my hometown, and I really appreciated that. But, you know, ultimately, I didn't make the movie for critics, right? I made the movie for people. I made the movie for audiences. Yeah. I want to connect to people. I didn't do this for any sort of, you know, altruistic reasons. I'm not trying to make a name for myself here. I'm trying to tell a story, and the story I'm trying to tell is based on the Marines that I met that told me their intimate tales of what the actions they took, the effects it had on them. I was moved by the cost of that on their psyche, on their mentality and emotions, their soul. I wanted to investigate that. I felt as an artist, like if I'm going to do something, it needs to be about something important. It needs to be about a reflection of my time in history, post 9/11, these wars that have been going on. This defines my generation as far as I'm concerned. So that's what I needed to respond to and reflect in my writing and in my work, and then go about the arduous process of producing this film independently and distributing it independently, and so the inspiration was from the men I met, and then the narrative itself, the story is, of course, I created it from a little kid that I knew when I was a kid whose mother was a drug addict and prostituting herself, and my boys and I would take care of this little kid, and we would take him out with us skateboarding and surfing and like that, and I even asked my mom when I was like 16, I was like, could we adopt this kid, and she was like, no, we can't, but thinking about him later on in life, and when I started writing it about what it would be like for these two individuals to come together, because and forgive me, I'm being a little long-winded, but the juxtaposition in the men that I was meeting coming back from combat, which is on one hand they were combat veterans, they just come from war, but on the other hand they were raising their children, sometimes other people's children, and they were gentle and they were compassionate and they were gentlemen and they were strong, and so that dichotomy just really interested me as an artist, and that was the inspiration for it, to answer your question.
Very good. Yeah.
I think that this country they kind of have a denial factor going on. We don't really want to admit what we know we are doing. We don't want to accept the responsibility for our men and women overseas and what we're doing. There's kind of a denial factor, and there's kind of a downer thing. It's like everything's bad, doom and gloom here. So you come along with a film where it's right in people's faces, and this is the reality of what goes on in a lot of families in a lot of ways. But you have a hopeful thing, and so you're like doing two things that are really brave. One is you're going to fight the denial that we do these things, and number two, you're going to say not everything's doom and gloom, and there's possibly solutions we should look at. And I commend you for that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah,
absolutely. And one thing I want to say, everybody, on your website, leastamongsaints.com, what I love about it is you put a whole list of veterans organizations for those who are serving and now, retired. And to me, we forget that we have solutions out there. And I think, again, that's where you're taking this.
Yeah, and that's been so satisfying as well, as being able to work with nonprofits that are providing services for veterans, like the Volunteers of America here in Los Angeles. We've had a number of screenings for their veterans, for their organization. We've raised a fair amount of money for them through different screenings and sort of projects and events. So that's been really satisfying that the film can actually have concrete sort of effect on these organizations, because they're providing great services for veterans. We did some screenings for IAVA in New York, and the Soldiers Project out here in Los Angeles is another great organization. So, I think if art can intermingle with life and have an effect beyond just sort of, which I think is a very important thing, coming into a cinema, connecting with your community, connecting with people around you, going on the journey of the film, I believe in it. I believe that it has healing qualities. That's why I've, dedicated my life to this profession,
Right on.
So, but to go one step beyond that and actually have, real effects is really cool. And we hope to continue to do it, in all the markets we go out into, and sort of combine our sales with different nonprofits so it actually produces results.
So after it goes into the theaters and in the movies and things like that now, in movie houses, I say, I'm still got. As soon as I think of a movie theater, I think back to the old days where we used to be able to sit inside and have food and have a beer.
That was a different
that's nice.
I know. I love those old school ones. But once this comes out, so does it go on DVD? What's the cycle?
We just released here in Los Angeles, New York, Virginia. We're doing really well, especially here in Los Angeles. The audiences are really coming out. In Pasadena, we're here in Santa Monica and in Pasadena. And it's been really, really cool. And so we're just 2 days in, and we're really hoping to sort of create a presence for ourselves. We're going to be out in San Diego next weekend. We're going to be in Chicago, Austin, Dallas. So we're going to roll out to about 16 cities in these first 3 weeks. And
Tucson, our town.
Yeah, that's where I went to school. I went to college. The movie's set in Tucson.
No way. That's what I was going to ask you. Because I'm looking at some of the film on the trailer going, I know some of this landscape, and that's where I'm really weird because I do a lot of driving places, and I get to know the landscape. I can tell you mountains from, one mountain from another country's mountain, And so
cool.
I was going to ask you, where did you shoot half of this?
Well, we kind of shot it in and around a lot of different places. I mean, primarily we're here in Los Angeles, but then we went on the road and we got to a lot of second unit stuff, and we did a few scenes out in the desert and things like that. I mean, I went to school at the University of Arizona, studied acting there, and a long time ago, and I loved the desert and I loved Tucson. It was important to create an environment that was similar to what the lead character had experienced abroad. I didn't want to tell too much of his story, his backstory, so I wanted to do it more subtly in terms of his environment, that it was sort of always kind of in these mountains and this desert was encroaching upon him. I remember hearing a soldier say, Afghanistan was so much like his hometown in Arizona, and so I thought that was sort of interesting. But
that's what we thought when we lived in 29 Palms, that we were like living in Iraq in some way.
Well, there's a reason everybody's in 29 Palms, because the next future of this country is war in the Middle East, and so that's why that's where everybody is.
And they're expanding out there.
Yeah.
Marty, we got to ask you what your champagne toast is. What are you happy for?
You know what? My brother got married last night.
Right on.
I got a toast to my brother Sean and his new bride Sylvia. They had a beautiful wedding. I come from a family of 4 brothers, and he's the first one of us to get married, and I'm really happy for them. And so my toast goes to my brother and his new bride.
Right on. And I got to toast Nancy, because while your brother was getting married, she was doing the bump dance to Wipeout last night.
Well, there it is there.
Hey, it's
well, right
challenge.
On.
You got to move. Man. It was kind of a dare, and I tried.
Marty, very excited about this. And do join us again sometime and let us know how it goes. I know it goes through the theaters, and then from there, let's continue talking about this and keep the awareness up. I think I'm excited to see it, and it's coming to Tucson, so that's great. So everybody, again, leastamongssaints.com. If you go there, you'll see where it is in theaters across the country, and just keep connected with them and see what you can do as well in regards to some of the veteran services, which they have listed up on their website as well. And they're on Facebook. Just type in Least Among Saints, and on Twitter, you just type in LA_Saints. Thanks so much, Marty.
Thank you so much, and I'll be in Tucson very soon, so maybe we can connect down there with the movie.
If you're coming to Tucson, definitely we'll do we'll video interview you this time. How about that?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll be there on the 26th.
I know you don't know anything about that, right?
I'm down. I'll be there in a few weeks, so I'll for sure call you.
Yeah, seriously, give us a call, because we're doing some special shows actually around here. We're doing one from the DeGrazia Gallery in the Sun, November 2nd, so we're doing some special ones all around here, so just let us know.
Perfect. I appreciate it.
All right. Cool. Well, congratulations. I'm glad it's out, and I'm glad you made it. So
thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you, Marty.
All right. Thank you, David. Bye.
Bye-bye.